communities in a more personal way instead of only relying on press conferences, print, newspaper, TV, social media. So we have started a loudspeaker campaign, which tends to be very, very effective. And to date, we have done some areas in Marabella, Debe, Sangre Grande, Palmis, and so on. And that is going to be ramped up in the next week because we want to reach as many patients, many people as possible so that they get the message. I want to just go on to another issue. And I hope that the graph that I have asked could be put up on the screen. Two very nice, simple graphs to illustrate a very serious problem. Ladies and gentlemen, up on the screen, there are two graphs. The graph on your left represents in blue the total number of cases globally. And the graph on your right, in orange, represents the total number of deaths globally. What you see is a gradual rise from January to March 18th in both graphs. And then from March 18th, you have this tremendous explosion in cases globally and deaths globally. So at the beginning, you were walking up a small incline, manageable. And then from March 18th, you are now facing a vertical wall of cases, a wall of death. And that is when the curve isn't flattened. That is when your hospital systems around you will become swamped. And demand for hospital spaces, demand for everything, PPE, ventilators, pharmaceuticals, bed space, that is what crashes your system. To date, we have not had that problem. But we keep emphasizing, so far, so good. I just want to give the country a little indication of what it takes in the usage of PPE alone to treat one person with COVID. I have a breakdown here. Head caps, 158 to treat one person, different shifts. Surgical masks, 85. N95s, 90. 90 N95s to treat one person. Face shields, 30. Gloves, 175 pairs. Shoe covers, 150 pairs. Gowns, 170, and protective suits, 4. When you add that up to treat one COVID patient, you are using 1,187 pieces of PPE. That's a huge number. And that does not include ambulance staff, doesn't include other staff. This is just to treat one COVID patient in a hospital. I bring this to your attention to go back to what I've been saying for the past couple of days. Don't start your own pyramid of infection. Don't let this country reach the space on the two graphs where I showed you that you hit a wall, a vertical wall, and that's when the curve isn't flattened. That, to treat one patient at the top, it's 1,187 pieces of PPE. Now multiply that by 10 at the base of the pyramid when the infection cascades hits you. You now move to 11,870 pieces of PPE to treat those 10 people at the bottom of the pyramid because one person at the top was careless or reckless. That is what we are faced with. And as we move into the Easter weekend, as I close my little introduction here, this is a good time for us to heed the exhortations, the advice, the warnings from the Honorable Prime Minister come down. Please stay at home over this long weekend. Thank you very much, Minister Cox.
Thank you very much, Minister. Let us hear from the Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith, who will speak on the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service response to COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Minister. Honorable Ministers, Chief of Defence Staff, members of the media, good morning. As the Commissioner of Police, I'm here just to briefly give you an update as it pertains to the role and function of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service during this period. As some may be aware, we have lifted the alert state of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service from yellow to orange. And by doing that, the orange alert is the only alert higher than this will be the red alert. That will only be triggered based on a directive from the Minister of National Security and or the Chairman of the National Security Council. The orange alert, it pertains to critical incident, event, or disaster being imminent. The officers, they're expected to be vigilant, ready for action. The Assistant Commissioners of Police, Senior Superintendents in charge of divisions, branches, and sections, and a number of different operational systems that we have by lifting this alert state. So what you will see is increased police patrols, higher visibility, a rapid response, and the whole operational effectiveness to ensure that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service can adhere to the obligations that we have to deal with, which pertains to trying to persuade policies that have been directed by the government and also to enforce new laws as per the regulations. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, I wish to also state that we have been taking note of the situation, so where we have trained paramedics and certified first aiders of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, ensuring that they are up to date in their training, awareness and procedures, and that they are positioned to offer support and assistance if and when required. As I speak about lifting the alert state, it means obviously the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will now be obligated to provide all of the requirements for administration, logistic that will be required to lift the alert state as it pertains to proper allocation of fuel, preventing further leave for police officers, call out of part-time SRPs, messing, transportation, ensuring that the police hospital is in effect logistics and other types of communication. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service also, we are involved through the Ministry of Health. They have sought the assistance of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to monitor certain lists of persons who were served with notices of quarantine by the Chief Medical Officer. And with that, there are a number of, we have the data, which I will hold for now, whereby it shows the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service going out throughout different divisions, dealing with that role and function. As I speak about lifting the alert state, what we have done then is that a number of police officers that will hold duties that will vary from administration, financial, human resource, we have now cut that down to have officers as much as possible be out on the streets to do patrolling, to do what is required as pertains to our role and function. As it pertains to the strength of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, at this time we have operationally 8,648 police officers, inclusive of the SRPs, that we can use, and we are using them to maximum efficiency. As I mentioned, there would be police officers who would have been assigned in previous units, but because of the role and function, because of the threat, these officers have now been reassigned more so to operational duty. That would involve police officers who would previously be in communications department, the legal, the 4 units in white-collar crime, victim and witness support, the police ban, human resource, finance, Interpol, the CID, homicide, tactical units, and community policing, to name a few. I would like to also take this opportunity of another issue that has not really been dealt with, but we have noticed a spike, and it has to do with the concern as it pertains to domestic violence. We have seen it internationally as well, whereas in most countries there has been an increase in domestic violence during this period. Trinidad and Tobago, based on the data that we have, it is no different. We have seen an escalation of assaults by beating. In February last year, there were 39, this year 73. March last year, there were 42, this year 96. And if you look overall, you will there's been a difference whereby it was 232 last year, there are 558 reports this year. Now this could also mean, because of the establishment of the gender-based violence unit, it means that there's a greater degree of trust by victims so that they are passing on information to the police. Having said that, I would like to send 2 messages. First, to the persons who may be the perpetrators, to let them know that this is no longer business as usual, that because of the establishment of the gender-based violence unit, especially in a situation where you have stay-at-home orders, it is not that you can actually do what you want in your home and expect that nothing will happen. Through the 555 system, the 999, contacting the gender-based violence unit, those individuals who commit such acts, you would continue to have a stay-at-home order, but it may not be at your home. I also like to take the opportunity to advise the possible victims. Do not wait until it is too late. Use the opportunity to contact the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service so that you will not be a fatality. I also would like to explain that we have established the Operational Command Center in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and our operation, it is twofold. Firstly, to deal with COVID-19 pandemic, and to ask the public again to assist us. There are 3 options for reporting. If you see something, say something, and we will sort it. It pertaining to the 555 hotline. On a daily basis, we get numerous reports from the citizens. We expect you to be the eyes and ears to assist the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So we are asking you to help us so that we can help you. Likewise, the 555, the 999, the 482 Gary, and the police app. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we have also noticed that there will be a different type of crime. Because many individuals are now forced to stay at home, criminals, they will continue their business. And this is why we ask the public, again, if you see something, say something. If there are individuals that look questionable, you see a vehicle in or around your community, bring it to our attention. And by stating this, I also would like to add that we have noticed that there's an increase of what may be planned as COVID private parties, where persons will try to have functions in their home, inviting friends and neighbors and family to come to their home. This again is a ticking time bomb. We've asked you again on a continued basis, as stated by the Chair of the National Security Council, be responsible. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we have a twofold objective here, where, as I stated, we are here to use persuasion based on policies, but also we intend to enforce laws. So with the situation of persons believing that they are getting frustrated, that they can start inviting persons over, this has proven to be a disaster in some countries. In New York City, this happened recently, where several persons died because of such an event. So do not take it for granted that by inviting close friends over, that you would be safe. And again, as I mentioned, one of the biggest concerns we do have is social media. I know people would love to send information to the public, but we need to be very careful. At times, fake news can actually be a very difficult situation for the police to deal with, because it may cause undue panic. We have seen just recently messages were being passed pertaining to incidents on Charlotte Street, and the word looting came about. Maybe persons who said that were not aware of the word looting, but this sends a wrong message. Looting involves a situation during a possible riot or a war, where it is that there's mass burglary, pilferage that will take place, and the law enforcement agencies can see it and they are unable to prevent it. There is no looting that is taking place. There have been criminal activities before COVID-19, during and after. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will do all that is required to prevent this as much as possible. I do thank the public that you have adhered to the advice of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service as it pertains to social distancing, especially outside the buildings that remain open. You need to adhere to this as much as possible. We have also submitted information and guidance to supermarkets, whereby we have advised the supermarkets that it is not 5 persons allowed in a supermarket at one time. So we have sent the message to guide individuals that there's a minimum distance, using an estimation of 75 square feet per person entering the store, and basically explaining to the supermarket owners, you have a responsibility both inside and outside. So, and again, there is very good communication with these organizations, and if you are not sure about something, the Minister of Health has continued to show that if you're not sure, bring it to their attention and do not take it for granted that what you're doing is allowed. As I close again, as I mentioned, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we will continue to do all that is required. On this day, again, my officers are out there putting their lives on the line. They are doing all that is required above and beyond the call of duty. It is very unfortunate that persons are trying to cause division or perceive that there is any division. There is not. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we are an independent body, and we are here to adhere to ensure that we implement policies dictated and directed by the government and to enforce new laws and new regulations. The Honorable Prime Minister continues to ask persons, even though the police service may not be able to enforce policies, we ask that the law of common sense can prevail. If it is you do that, you make life much easier for us. Recently, there was a situation pertaining to the recommendation of private security. I again, based on persons just trying to change words to believe that there's some difference in opinion. It is not. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we're a very professional organization. As the Commissioner of Police, there was a headline that was stated that the police reignited private security. That was not true. The police cannot reignite. The police cannot authorize. The police cannot fund such a situation. However, it does not mean that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we were not part of this process. It does not mean that the Commissioner of Police was not aware. We were aware. I have my views on it, and I saw value to it. Unfortunately, it went in a different direction. But many persons, there's one thing that I wish to note before I close, is that everyone is a security expert in this country. So everyone believes what can and should be done. Well, I have a little bit of knowledge in security, and I can tell you this is not an easy country to secure, especially when we have a situation of a virtual war zone out there. And all that we were trying to do is to try to get extra resources to assist the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service so that we can mobilize and utilize the 85 emergency response patrols, our task force, and our special operational units to be able to go out into the hotspot areas, into the volatile areas, into areas where persons may continue to commit crime and also breach the regulations. So anything would have assisted us. That being the case, with Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we will go back to what it was before, and we will continue to do all that is required. We ask the public to please work with us. We are not the enemy. The only enemy here is the invisible enemy of COVID-19. Let us work together, circle the wagons, and give the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service the support, the information, the guidance, and that you can provide to help us to help you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. This was very informative. At this time, the Chief of Defence Staff, Air Commodore Daryl Daniel, will update us on the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force response during this period. Air Commodore.
Good morning, Honourable Ministers, Commissioner of Police, members of the media,
Good morning. Good morning.
listening public of Trinidad and Tobago. Allow me to take this opportunity to thank the men and women of the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force for their commitment to serve our country, and also to thank their families for their support and sacrifice. Sadly, I also want to take the opportunity to extend, as the head of Defence Force, sincere condolences to the members of the families of all those involved in the unfortunate incident that resulted in the passing of one of our family members, who was on board a patrol on the 7th of April 2020, and ask that the privacy of the families be respected during this very difficult time. The mission of the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force is to defend Trinidad and Tobago against internal and external threats, securing our national interests and providing support to state and non-state agencies pursuant to national development. And I say that in the context of what I'm here to share information on today, the Defence Force role in COVID-19 operations. The Defence Force current strength is 5,329 personnel. That number is broken up into 4 groupings, which will result in 1,331 personnel in 4 divisions. Each day, that is the amount of personnel you have working for the state to do all the various operations. In our current scenario, we're involved in military aid to civil authority, so that will be Ministry of Health, Ministry of Social and Welfare Development. For example, we are providing security perimeter patrols for 6 locations. That also involves military aid to the civil power, in this case, the police. We have a standby element so that if there is need for extra manpower based on the operations that are happening on the ground, we have people to add to that supply. And this is daily. Our personnel in the 4 watches I just described work 24 hours. We also have routine operations that are happening besides COVID. So that would include border security patrols on land, border security patrols on the sea, and border security patrols in the air. The men and women that serve in the Defense Force, like everyone else, have families that when they would do their duties, they have to understand the challenges and the difficulties that they may face. They are putting their lives at risk, just like the health workers, just like the police officers, and we are not sure what is going to happen. You can rest assured that the Defense Force is there providing support to the police and to all the other entities that we are called on, whether they are state or non-state agencies, to help us all get through this pandemic that we are facing. The other duties that we carry out, just to give you an example, the radar center is continually running, and in conjunction with the Coast Guard and the Air Guard is managing our borders. And you would appreciate how porous our borders are, that we are not able to have vessels everywhere. And constantly we are doing that in the midst of what is happening here. And we will try as best as we can to address the threat of personnel trying to come across our borders, which are currently closed, to those citizens leaving the borders and anyone coming into the borders, whether it's our citizens or not. And you may recall the minister mentioned in a past press briefing about personnel leaving our borders and going across. That is Trinidad and Tobago citizens departing our borders, which they are not authorized to do at this time, and coming back with presenting issues that would be difficult for us to deal with. We continue to support the police in all their endeavors on the patrols, and just like any member of society, we do our best to train our men and women, and we expect them to always make good choices. Unfortunately, there are some times when they will not make good choices, and just like in society where there is the law to deal with those who would contravene the law, when personnel in the Defense Force contravene the law, they will be addressed accordingly. I thank you for your attention, and I stand by for any questions that may arise.
Thank you very much. Members of the media, the floor is now open. Remember to identify yourself and the media house you represent before posing your question. One or two. I'm seeing, I think it's Kimberly.
Yes, hi, morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Kimberly.
Hi, Minister Dialsing, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I wanted to know if an investigation will be launched. We've been hearing a lot of complaints coming out of the Cora Health Facility in terms of the places not being sanitized. People are getting sick, actually more than they would have if they had the coronavirus. I just wanted to know if you heard about those reports and if it will be investigated. I also wanted to know what is the process of being admitted into Cora? Because is it that once you get tested, you go to Cora to await your results? Or is there a separation where those who are positive will be separated from those who are negative, etc.?
Thank you.
I just wanted to know how we are dealing with
Sure.
the positive cases as opposed to those who would have tested negative for corona.
So I did indicate yesterday that I asked the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Davlin Thomas, to investigate the issues relating to Cora. I got his report this morning. I can make certain parts of it public, but certain parts I can't because of patient confidentiality. Let me put this in the most diplomatic way as possible. What led to the issue, I am told by the report, was that there was a particular patient under the care of Professor Hutchinson. I am told by the CEO that some other patients took it upon themselves to have a disagreement with the way that particular patient was being managed by Professor Hutchinson. That led to a cascade of events which unfortunately had some negative fallout. The Chief Executive Officer has indicated that he investigated and found the following. 1. There was enough PPE for staff. That was not an issue. But the issue seems to have arisen from certain patients, I am told by the report, not agreeing to the way that Professor Hutchinson was managing one particular patient, and which led to escalation. That is all I can say on that matter. On the matter of cases, the Chief Medical Officer gave a detailed breakdown, so I don't want to repeat what he says because he is in charge of that, as to how positive cases are treated, and we could refer to his earlier comments on that and how CORA is managed from his perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. TV6.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Elizabeth Williams, TV6 News. What I wanted to know, I know Minister Diyal Singh would have said that the loudspeaker program will start soon. How soon will this occur in Tobago? And I'm asking all other questions at the same time. Any special flights in terms of Condor? Condor would have arrived at the A&R Robinson International Airport yesterday, and in a number of passengers would have departed from Tobago, over 100. Any other special flights that will be coming to this country? Also, yesterday on TV6's news, in Venezuela, a number of Trinidad and Tobago nationals are in fear of eviction as the hotel where they are staying is going to be closed. Human rights activist Yacina Gonzalez would have said this information. Is the government aware of this new information? Also, this one could be posed to Mr. Police Commissioner Gary Griffith. Police in Tobago recently closed down a retail store, Parker's Trading. She sells items to assist with funeral homes and materials to make masks, as the government is asking. Is there one law for Tobago and one law for Trinidad? And my final question, are efforts being made to procure an aircraft to transport COVID-positive patients from Tobago to Trinidad? I know that there's the Coast Guard vessel, but is the government looking at an aircraft to assist in the process? Thank you.
Okay, so there were, I think, 4 or 5 questions there. On the issue of Tobago and loudspeakers, I am advised that has already started as part of a national effort. On the issue of Condor and Venezuela, those are questions best posed to the Minister of National Security. What I will remind is that I remember him saying yesterday that at one of the hotels that Trinidadians are staying at, they have actually reduced their daily rate to, I think, $10 US. So as far as the Condor flights are concerned, Venezuela, those are questions that I will allow the Minister of National Security to address, but he did address them yesterday. Thank you.
Commissioner?
Yes, as it pertains to that matter, as the Minister would have stated on a number of occasions, the situation is very fluid. So at times there would be discrepancies pertaining to the interpretation of the law. In this situation, what I would just ask, if that person can please call 555 or just send a WhatsApp to 482 Gary with the details, and I promise I will deal with it personally to ensure that if a business should remain open, it will be done, and the police will be briefed accordingly.
Thank you. Newsday.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. I have 2 questions, 2 short questions, one for the Minister of Health and one for the Commissioner. Mr. Griffith, you said no looting, but are you able to confirm any robberies? As donor claimed that there have been a number of robberies in Port of Spain.
Yes, they have, especially on Charlotte Street. I actually spoke to Mr. Aboud at length last night. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, through the task force and the CID, we would be lifting the operational capabilities in those areas. We realize what the individuals they have been doing. So we have spoken to the relevant businessmen and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, especially the task force and the officers in the Port of Spain division. They are aware of the situation. So it was not looting, but there have been certain burglaries that have taken place.
I think there was another question.
Sorry. What was the other question again?
What is the other question, please?
Minister Dayal saying,
yes. Sorry?
Yeah, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Has any of the private labs been certified?
Not as yet. The process has gone out. CARFA has always had a questionnaire to deal with the certification of labs. It is not a legal requirement. CARFA, PAHO, and the Ministry of Health will put out today the list of criteria as an initial screening tool. It's a desktop exercise. Once any lab gets over that first hurdle of the questionnaire, then they will do a site visit, I suppose, to validate that 1, the tests are accurate, 2, they are in conformity with international standards, because the Chief Medical Officer has said on numerous occasions many of the results that we are getting back from private labs are incorrect. And he indicated, and let me reiterate, a false positive test is not a tragedy. That person might self-quarantine. But what you don't want, and which we are getting, are false negatives. When somebody has a false negative, they are of the view that they are COVID-free, they mix with society, and they start their own pyramid of infections. So what is being done with the Ministry of Health, PAHO, and CARFA, they will institute the policies. It's not a legal requirement. It's just a validation of process, a validation of kits, to make sure that the results we get, which form part of our national database, are results that we can rely on.
Thank you very much. News source.
Hi, good morning to the panel.
Good morning.
I have 2 questions. One for
Please
the Minister
identify
of
yourself,
Health.
please.
Sorry, it's Rhoda Barrett. So I've got 2 questions. I've got questions for 2 members of the panel, for the Commissioner of Police and for the Minister of Health. So, Minister, on March the 25th, you would have given us a very comprehensive update on the amount of equipment and health supplies that the ministry has ordered and put in place for frontline health workers. Is it possible to receive an update on equipment and health supplies today?
Sure.
Please, just to have a sense of where we're at. And for the Commissioner of Police, after having a conversation with the chairman of the Tunapuna-Piarco Regional Corporation yesterday, a couple of things arose for me. I'm wondering, are people being arrested and charged yet for ignoring the stay-at-home order? And what, if any, coordination is going on between the TTPS and the municipal police for community patrols, and whether or not, and if yes, if you can shed any details, if you can share any details rather with the listening public. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Rhoda, for your question. On the issue of PPE and everything else, reporting to us at the ministry are 12 teams. 1 team member handles procurement of pharmaceuticals and non-pharmaceuticals solely. We have, on a rolling basis, stock coming in every couple of days or every week. I don't have the exact figures, but when we met yesterday with NIBDEC, there were absolutely no red flags yesterday as far as PPE, pharmaceuticals, or non-pharmaceuticals. So we seem to be, and we are well stocked with everything across the board, even though international supply chains have been affected. I have 1 person dedicated to that every single day, and I meet with her at 9 o'clock in the morning before coming here and 1 o'clock. So we pay particular attention to it. So it's a rolling number, and no red flags were raised yesterday at the 1 o'clock meeting with the principal pharmacist and NIBDEC and myself.
Yes, Rhoda. Okay, pertaining to the first question, yes, 3 persons have been arrested at this time. All 3 persons have been, I think, in the central area for keeping their bars open. What we have noticed, however, is that there's been a great degree of responsibility by the vast majority of by citizens of this country, where they have adhered to the restrictions, they've listened to the policies, and if it is that there have been a number of occasions where the police would actually interact with individuals for possibly breaching regulations, but immediately upon the police speaking to them, they will disperse, they will close their stores, they may show ignorance, not understanding what was there in the regulations or the policies. But persons are being guided, and as stated, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we are using the persuasion as much as possible rather than having to enforce the law. What we'll have to understand is that the more persons that we arrest, that can also be an avenue towards the virus spreading, because more persons being arrested, more persons stay in the prisons, they have to interact with the police officers. It is not to say that we do not intend to do it. 3 persons have already been arrested. Hopefully, it looks like persons are adhering to their responsibility. You will be seeing a very heavy increase in policing, especially from 6 p.m., whereby there should be very little need for persons to be out in the streets. So there will be heavy roadblocks in front of almost every police station. There will be roadblocks, stop and search. And this goes hand in hand with your second question, whereby the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, yes, we are working closely with the municipal police. In fact, the head of the municipal police, he attends our regular meetings. We had a meeting on Tuesday, whereby we explained to the municipal police what is required, more so the concerns at the markets and supermarkets, to make sure that the business owners adhere to the social distancing, and also the customers. So yes, there's a great degree of communication between both parties.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. CLC, Yolande Thomas.
Good morning.
Morning, Yolande.
Good morning.
Hi, Minister Dial's
Yes,
question towards you.
Sorry?
It's just this question is geared towards you.
Sure.
It's just about 18 days since the borders closed and the 20,000 persons came in. Has the ministry been in contact with these persons who possibly may be showing signs or not? And also there's a fear that the ministry is not addressing the issue or does not have a handle on the issue.
Okay. So, as the Chief Medical Officer would have said at an earlier press conference, it is difficult to police 20,000 people. So what we did for the ministry to do that, so as the Commissioner of Police said earlier, he is working with the Ministry of Health to manage that situation. When those 18,000 persons came in, they would have been given information, literature, and forms to sign, agreeing, as far as I'm told, to the quarantine provisions. Their 14-day period would have expired last weekend. We have had no explosion in cases coming out of those. So far, so good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Express. Okay, we seem to have lost Express. Is Express
Hello,
there?
good morning.
Good morning, Anna.
Anna Ramdas from the Express newspaper. Good morning.
Morning.
Minister Dialswing.
Yes.
Minister Dialswing, you said a couple of days ago that there was a delay in getting North Central up for testing because there were no extraction kits. Can you clarify? Is it that the test kits do not come with extraction kits, and are these the kits that were donated from China?
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, secondly, I spoke to some patients yesterday at COVA, and I know you mentioned earlier that 32 patients were to be decanted. Some of the patients I spoke to are asking why can they not be decanted at their own homes so they can continue their quarantine if they test negative. And I have a couple of questions to the Commissioner of Police, if I can just ask them right away. Commissioner Griffith, you stated yesterday via release that the TTPS did not request private security firms to lend assistance. Were you consulted on the move to do so by the Ministry of National Security? Secondly, have you received a response from the Minister of Finance with respect to funds requested to beef up the TTPS response to COVID-19? And what does the police service need at this time to improve its response? And lastly, Commissioner, have there been cases of the police service being called in to break up COVID parties?
Okay, so I will deal with the first two questions and then Commissioner Griffith will deal with his. Yes, so the kits that came in from China did not have the extraction kits, and we are working right now with the Chinese government through the embassy here to source extraction kits. So that's one. We are also working with other entities, I believe in South Korea, and one other country. Let's see if I can remember. I can't remember. Costa Rica, I believe it is, to try to source extraction kits that are compatible with the kits that we have. And let me just say, NCRHA will have to go through the same validation process with CARFA, PAHO, as any other private lab. On the issue of discharge of patients from CUVA, the Chief Medical Officer would have given out the criteria and the process for discharge. What you don't want is a patient being discharged too early. Now, let's be real. Being quarantined is not easy. I understand and empathize with patients who want to go home. However, in the public interest, it is better that we adhere to protocols which are: you must be asymptomatic for 7 days. 2, you must have 2 negative tests within 24 hours. When that happens, we send you to a step-down facility for a further 7 days, according to the CMO, because we don't want you to go home and just one person slips through the crack with a false negative, and then you infect a whole community again. So whilst I empathize, sympathize with patients who are going through trauma, it's absolutely traumatic. I have been speaking to a couple of them. But we have to have their best interests at heart, the best interests of their families, communities, and the country as a whole. It is a difficult time for all of us, all those patients, and we recognize that.
Okay, the 4 questions, let me see how quickly I could answer them. I'll deal with the last one first. No, we have not intercepted any situation with these private parties, but we are aware that they are being planned, especially over this weekend. So what, again, we are asking the public, with neighbors, if you see something, say something, bring it to our attention. We would be setting up immense roadblocks throughout the country. Persons need to justify why they will be out of the street after 6 p.m., unless you're going to the drugstore, and then after 8 p.m., well, then that's another story. Also, we'll be monitoring certain places where you'll see vehicles parked outside homes. Again, listen to the noise. So, and we do have information of what may be planned. So we intend to take a very stringent approach to deal and to eliminate the possibility of persons having these type of events. As it pertains to the Ministry of Finance, I have spoken at length with the Minister of Finance and the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance. They have provided what is required for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. As you would be aware, in a situation like this, there would be greater need for persons in the Trinidad and Tobago, the police service. We have extra resources, extra tools, equipment, and because of that, obviously more resources would have been required, as well as masks and other equipment needed for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. This has been provided through the Ministry of Finance. We wish to thank them very much. It was required. As pertaining to the other 2 points, what it is that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will need, what we need more than anything else, is public support, public confidence, public trust. We are not the enemy. We would make mistakes. We would drop the ball now and then. I mean, we're speaking about over 8,000 officers. That should not be an opportunity for anyone to decide to just demonize the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. These officers are going above and beyond. They have to go back to their homes, to their loved ones. And what we will ask is what we want more than anything else is for the public to be there with us, support us, trust us, and secondly, to give us the information. Help us to help you. The final question as it pertains to private security. The that situation, yes, it is that the Minister of National Security, there was dialogue with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. It was brought to our attention on Saturday. We have regular meetings every morning with the Minister of National Security and other heads of the protective services. He brought it to our attention. We had a follow-up meeting on Monday. I gave some recommendations as to what can be done to improve it and to make sure it is as effective as possible. I've seen that. I was aware of how it worked a few years ago. So even though that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, what I stated is that we did not reignite it. It gave the impression that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, this was something, a policy by the police service. We are not here to draft policies. We are here to implement policies as directed by the government. In this situation, the government had a policy. It was not a policy that was decided, that was recommended by the police service, but it was something that we would have welcomed. We welcome that because of the fact that this is a very large country, and trying to lock down a country in a situation like this, it is very difficult. My officers are working 24/7. It is very difficult for them to lock down a country of especially whereas you see in other countries that the safe city model, where it's a grid. We don't have grids. When we were in an operation in Dundonald Hill just a few days ago, we spent several hours going through patrols, and it is very difficult. So that is why we look forward to any type of support that we can get. So we were in support of such a policy. Unfortunately, it has been dropped. But that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we were aware of what was taking place.
Thank you very much. IETV.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I have two quick questions to the police commissioner, please. It's similar to my colleague's question in terms of yesterday someone called our newsroom to say that they observed in Sangre Grande there was a bakery and a lot of persons were lining up outside of the bakery, but they were not practicing social distancing. So my question is, are officers visiting businesses such as bakeries, for example, in remote areas, as well as we also observed that a number of wholesale marts, previously liquor marts before the last 2 weeks, they are still open, they're still advertising their goods and services. I know that the Minister of National Security mentioned that liquor should only be sold at the supermarket, but these previous liquor marts are now advertising their goods and liquor as well. So are there any follow-ups to that? And my final question, yesterday, for example, I ordered some, let's say, some market vegetables, and I was told by the person who was going to deliver it to my home, you know, I'm trying to practice social distancing as well, that they were stopped by police because they didn't have their letter, their authorization letter. They had to go back. So officers are aware of these services, because this person, they had their vegetables and everything packed in a van, and they still had to go home to get a letter. Any clarification on that? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay. As it pertains to the remote areas, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we have 9 divisions throughout the country. But we have thousands of officers, and again, it is impossible for us to be able to lock down every single street and corner. What we have seen is that certain persons will open. If they see a police vehicle passing, coming close by, they will close. So persons are trying to beat the system. They are trying to find loopholes. It makes it very difficult for us. So as it pertains to your first question, this goes back to the public. Rather than complain and go on social media of what you claim that you saw, the 555 system has proven to be very effective. We have received numerous reports from persons, and on most occasions when we actually go to the area, on most occasions there's nothing there. But the few occasions that we do find situations where persons breach regulations, persons adhere to it and they close. So if you get situations of persons breaching the regulations, rather than persons complain, please call 555. Send it on an app, the police app, and bring it to our attention. As it pertains to liquor marts, likewise, there would be persons who will try to breach the regulations, try to bend the rules. It is clear that if, at this time, something may change in the near future. As I stated, that this is very fluid, and it being very fluid, it means that if at this time you need to have a grocery license, and if it is you don't have it, then and you only have a liquor license, well then that liquor mart should close. Finally, pertaining to what was the last question? A letter? There was something.
A letter of authorization.
Yes, there's no letter of authorization per se. Again, if it is that persons may be stopped by police officers, you feel that your rights would be infringed in any way, please bring it to our attention. We will brief the police officers, because this situation, remember, it is very fluid. So at times there may be hiccups. I do wish to apologize if it is that the police service, we drop the ball based on certain situations. You must be aware of your rights. You must also be aware of what you should not do. And the police officers, they are being briefed as much as possible. So if there's a situation or a concern, bring it to our attention and we immediately brief the relevant divisions or stations.
Thank you, Commissioner. Folks, I just want to remind you all that the Chief of Defence Staff is also here, and he is ready and willing to answer your questions. But before I move on, I just would like to ask a question online to the Minister of Health.
Okay, sure.
What about the protocols for the Mount Hope Women's Hospital, the neonatal units and maternity wards at hospitals which have them?
That's a very good question. So, Minister Cox and members of the media, you may recall we had Dr. Sally Ishmael here early in the week talking about the whole issue of COVID and pregnancy. The COVID and pregnancy guidelines have been developed under the Directorate of Women's Health, led by Dr. Adesh Sirju. And Dr. Salian Ishmael gave the population chapter and verse on what the protocols are. As far as executing those protocols, each of the chiefs of staff at the maternity hospitals will know the protocols. We are leading this out of Mount Hope with Professor Bassau, who is now the chief of staff at Mount Hope. So women who are pregnant, we have treated them as a special population. As I said, Sally-Ann was here early in the week. For children now, we have dedicated a special space at Arima Hospital. So in case we get children under 18 with COVID, they will be housed in a special unit at the Arima Hospital, where they'll be allowed to stay where parents and guardians will be allowed to stay, but those parents and guardians must wear full PPE to make sure they don't get affected. So thank you for the question, and we have considered our pregnant population and our pediatric population.
Thank you very much, Minister. I see Astronaut Health newspapers here.
Yes, good morning. My name is Gwyneth Stewart from Astronaut Health newspaper, and I just want to good morning. I just want to quickly congratulate the officials of government and the police service and defense force for the excellent response to COVID-19, and also in particular congratulate the Commissioner for his warning to potential perpetrators of gender-based violence. And my question is to the Commissioner. I just want a clarification on his statement concerning 5 persons being allowed into a supermarket at a time. He made a statement that seemed ambiguous. I just want him to explain or clarify, please.
Yes, what I was stating is that it is perceived that because of the assembly of 5 or less, at times some persons believe that only 5 persons can be in a supermarket. That is incorrect. So what I've been liaising with the Supermarket Association, and they have explained, and we have sent the guidelines to the police officers and to the Supermarket Association, whereby we will explain to them that we are looking at, it depends on the size of the supermarket, so you'll know the number of persons that can enter the supermarket. So it is not that 5 persons can enter the supermarket. We are looking, they have recommended a radius of 75 square feet, so sometimes it could be dozens of persons at one time. So it is fluid based on the size of the supermarket. So that is it. So I'm just trying to say that it's not 5 persons alone inside every single supermarket or grocery. It depends on the size.
Thank you very much. I now take a question online for the Commissioner of Police. The actions of the police regarding Charlotte Street appears to be reactionary. However, where is the city police in all of this?
Okay, well, every single burglary that takes place, if it is that the police do not actually apprehend the person whilst he is committing the burglary, and then they investigate, does that mean that the police is a reactive approach? It is not. On most occasions, when persons commit burglary or commit crime, the police will then investigate. So it is not a case of We cannot go from pillar to post and from house to house and be able to protect every single place in this country. This is similar to the police service. We have become operational as per a state of emergency without a proclamation and without extra laws or powers that the police would have. So we have it's a big country. So you cannot expect that if there's a break-in in a certain place, you will, okay, if it is that you feel that you want to state that is reactionary because of that, I don't know if every single time that there's a burglary you will state this. The fact of the matter is that other individuals, the business owners, need to also have a responsibility. You need to ensure your area is secured as much as possible. The police service, we've seen what has happened. The Charlotte Street situation is very technical because what they were doing is actually breaking into places in the back of buildings and then moving with wheelbarrows, heading into George Street and further east. So we're aware of what is happening and we're doing all that is required.
Okay, 98.1.
Good morning. Stephen Cummings here from 98.1 FM. A question to the Chief of Defense Staff. Can you explain the difference between the country being under emergency powers and that of a state of emergency? I think there is still a bit of a confusion, some confusion in the minds of some citizens as to where are we because of this increase in heightened security in Trinidad and Tobago at this time.
Chief of Defense Staff.
Good morning, Mr. Cummings, and thank you for your question. So your question, if I stated correctly, is to understand the difference between a state of emergency versus restricted movement of the society, which is what we have now. You need to appreciate, if you go to a state of emergency, you basically shut down the country. So there is no collection of refuse or garbage. There is no transport on the road. The only people who you'll find on the road at that time are the police and the military. And the military has some extra powers at that time. That is not somewhere where you take a country easily. Because then you have to answer the questions, how is refuge with all our civil society at home? So then they're producing garbage. How is that going to be collected? How are the health workers, the people who work at TNTech, at WASA, at TSTT that keeps us connected, and all the other things that are happening, how are these people going to get there if we have a state of emergency and no one is allowed on the streets? We basically shut down the country. Added to which, of course, we would have seen the example in Barbados when a state of emergency was announced and people panicked because it hits the person, the individual, that what am I going to do? I don't have enough food you don't know how long it's going to be, and there are a whole set of issues. So what you have seen the government put in place is a gradual control of what is happening in society based on the directive and the guidance of the medical experts to control COVID-19 spread. And you would agree, if you look at what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago compared to the rest of the world, we are doing pretty well. And it will continue to be addressed, and the needed reactions and policies will be put in place as we are guided by the health authorities as they monitor what is happening. This is not something that anybody has expertise in. We are still discovering, as you hear from the health minister and globally, we don't understand COVID-19 and how it is spread. But all the decisions that have been made are doing what is best to keep the country running, because there is life after COVID-19. But the decisions that you make now will impact what state the country will be in. And as the Commissioner said, and the Minister, and all those on the media conferences, we ask the people to follow the instructions. If we follow the instructions that are being laid out and we cooperate, we will make it through this by God's grace. It is not something we want to go to in terms of a state of emergency, because then I ask you, who is going to do all those things I outlined? Who's going to be collecting garbage? How are these health workers going to get to work? The people at TSTT, the people at WASA, the people at TNTech. If there's a break in power, who is going to come and restore power to that area of Trinidad where it happens? we are not thinking about all those things. Once you go into a state of emergency, that cannot happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move to the Commissioner of Police. There's a question online. Can we get an update from the Commissioner of Police and the Chief of Defense Staff on the investigation into the incident where a homeless person was given alcohol and had a gun pointed at him?
Yes, at this time, we are very close to completing the investigation. So far, we have 4 persons of interest, 2 members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, 2 members of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. These individuals would be questioned. This may not just be a disciplinary matter. So because of that, it will be difficult for me to make any further comment. But I can assure you that we are very close to completion of this investigation.
Thank you very much. We move to TTT. Crystal Wilson.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Crystal Wilson, TTT Limited. Health Minister,
Could we go back to Crystal, please? So we'll go to Loop TT.
Alina Dudnas from Loop TT. Just wanted to ask very quickly some small questions. I know that people are now trying to make their own masks. I was wondering if there is any chance some people may run out of fabric, as we don't know how long the situation is going to last. Might there be any exemptions for fabric stores, maybe for only curbside deliveries, things like that? Secondly, with regard to domestic violence, are there any options for women who may get to the point where they need to leave their home for personal safety and the safety of their children? Thirdly, there are some reports that people may have been showing symptoms, but they were afraid of saying anything, maybe for fear of stigmatization. Some of them may even have been going to work or carrying their duties as normal and not isolating. Is there any option or what should be any advice in situations like that? Thank you.
Could you just repeat the last part of your question, please?
There are some persons who may have, we've had some reports, some people may have had flu-like symptoms, but they're afraid of stigmatization, and some of them may not have been isolating themselves or reporting or calling the hotline numbers. Is there any advice to the public in situations like that, if someone might have flu-like symptoms but is not?
So on the issue of masks and exemptions, to make a mask is a very small amount of material. You could take an old t-shirt, you can make a mask. You could take a bandana and make a mask. There is no reason to open up cloth stores to make masks. An old t-shirt, you can make 10 masks out of an old t-shirt, and we all have old t-shirts. So deal with the issue of flu-like symptoms and stigmatization. Dr. Hazel Othello addressed that issue squarely yesterday from a mental health perspective. And her advice was we should not engage in discrimination and stigmatization of anybody who has COVID, recovering from COVID, suspected of COVID, or is a healthcare worker in the environment treating with COVID. That issue of stigmatization is a live one internationally, and we asking Trinidadians and Tobagonians to be compassionate. We are all in this together. As Dr. Othello said yesterday, no one asked to get COVID. It happens. But we are our brother's keeper in all of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I-95.5.
Good morning to everyone. And yes, morning. And of course, thanks to all at the head table for the work they've been doing, as well as those who work under them. We definitely salute you this morning. For the commissioner, given the recent announcement by the Minister of Health urging persons to wear masks when venturing out in public, since then, some persons have been expressing concerns for their personal safety while out and about. So I don't know if you can give us some tips as to how we can determine whether the person in front of us, next to us, is actually a law-abiding citizen, or whether they might be up to something more than that. Because not every bandana-wearing person now is actually a bandit. Thank you.
Before the Commissioner answers, could you identify yourself, please? Are you hearing?
Yes, Field from I-95.
Okay. Okay, thank you. You heard him?
Yes, I did, Minister. Yes. Now, we are aware that persons have actually challenged the police when it is that we advise persons to wear a mask. Again, this is where the law of common sense would come in, and with this, we are not trying to profile anyone because they have a mask. We have also seen situations where persons are going into the banks, and sometimes the banks would ask you to remove your mask just for video footage, and then you can put it back on. So again, this is very flexible. This should not be seen as a system for us to profile anyone. So it is difficult for us to pinpoint if someone is a criminal or not, if he's wearing a mask or not. Minister, if I could also, the last person from Loop, I think, she asked about domestic violence. If I can just clarify. Yes. Again, I asked for pertaining to the situation with domestic violence. Persons, please do not wait until it is too late. We have seen it in worldwide, where there is the concern of an increase in domestic violence based on stay-at-home orders. I spoke about assault by beatings from 119 last year to 205 this year, threats from 52 last year to 173 this year. So we have seen an increase. As it pertains to the victim leaving the home, I beg to differ. If it is that the perpetrator, he is the person that is committing a crime, we can very well move him, and he would have a stay-at-home order in a more uncomfortable place. This should be a situation where it is we are asking the victims, please come forward via 555. You can WhatsApp 482 Gary or the police app. Bring it to our attention, and we will immediately deal with the situation through the gender-based violence unit. The individuals here are highly trained, qualified. There's going to be a strong degree of confidentiality, sensitivity. So please do not wait until it is too late.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I will now go back to TTT. Is TTT on? Okay, we move to TB6.
Good morning.
We move back to TV6, please.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning, are you?
Good morning, Williams, TV6.
Yes, we're hearing you.
Good morning, Elizabeth Williams, TV6.
Good morning.
What I wanted to know, Minister Dial Singh,
yes?
Private labs are, in one of the daily newspapers, private labs are saying that CARFA does not have the authority to certify them. And another question, and this one is for Mr. Gary Griffith. Should there, in your opinion, should there be a limited state of emergency at this point in light of COVID-19?
Okay. So thank you very much, Elizabeth. So I did address that issue of private labs, and we said clearly it's not a legal requirement. What we are asking, that this is a national effort, and the database that we have to compile has to be able to stand scrutiny. The Chief Medical Officer will have already said that some of the test results we are getting from private labs are incorrect. So what we are trying to do to protect the public, we are putting out a validation exercise for all private labs. They will have to answer questionnaire. Once they get over that hurdle, then we will validate their systems, their tests, to make sure they are compatible with best practice, so that the data we collect from them could stand global scrutiny. And that is the process. It's not a legal requirement, but we are trying to validate a process so the public can have confidence, bearing in mind that the Chief Medical Officer has already on numerous occasions said that we are getting incorrect results from private labs. On the issue of testing, I got an online question, or not online, a query at the Ministry of Health. Are we looking at serology testing? Because that's a big thing globally now. The latest evidence coming out of these quick finger prick tests where you take a drop of your blood and put them into a little cassette like a pregnancy test. I just want to read for the public the latest evidence as of last night. And it says, coming out of England by Dr. Pell, I believe it is. But the initial optimism was dented this week after leading British scientists revealed that none of the tests they had tried so far were accurate enough to be of any use. The disease associated with coronavirus said it had ordered millions of kits and now seeking refunds. Dr. Anthony Fauci, he said, you have to validate the test or otherwise go down a path that would be very misleading. And that is why we must have the process of validation. It is not a legal requirement. We never said it was a legal requirement. We are saying for the safety of Trinidad and Tobago, we must have confidence in the private labs performing these tests, and we are asking them to partner with the government, cooperate with the government, voluntarily get your lab certified for COVID only. We are not asking them to get validated for everything else that they do. Only for COVID, so that the country and the world will have confidence in our figures, both for the PCR tests and now for these rapid tests using serology, none of which have been proven to be effective, and many countries around the world now are seeking refunds. Right? Let me just give you one last quote. The mantra among experts is that the only thing worse than no test is a bad test. So mistakenly telling thousands of people they are immune could be catastrophic. We have to be led by the science and the evidence, which so far has not misled us. So I hope I have dealt with the whole issue of testing, whether it's PCR or the quick test, the rapid test, based on serology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Dayal Singh. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of today's virtual media conference. Do remember that the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Communications are your only credible sources of government information on COVID-19. But before we close, I would like to remind you, the public, that we will be hosting a virtual town meeting on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. We know you, the members of the viewing and listening audience, have many questions about COVID-19, and we would like to provide answers. We are inviting you to join us by tuning into your radio, television, or live stream to interact with our panel of doctors who will speak about a wide range of issues arising from COVID-19 that affect you. Keep checking the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Communications, and other official government social media pages for further information. Further details will also be posted in the daily newspapers and on television. Thanks once again to our essential workers. We are grateful. I am Donna Cox, Minister of Communications. Thank you for joining us.